morning, Mrs. Hudson.
Good morning, Mr. Holmes. You're in high spirits.
With good cause, Mrs. Hudson. I just ran a most unique experiment. Is Watson about?
He hasn't come down this morning, but I've heard him stirring.
Most unlike him to sleep in. I trust he's well.
I think he returned rather late last night, what with the rain. Would you like some tea, Mr. Holmes?
It would be delightful. And perhaps a bit of breakfast. I've got something of an appetite. Oh, Watson!
Oh.
Good morning.
Holmes, please, I beg you. Could you please lower your voice? I have a bit of a headache this morning.
Nothing serious, I trust.
I was just going to bring Mr. Holmes some breakfast. Could I leave you a plate?
Oh, just coffee, Mrs. Hudson. Very black, very strong, and plenty of it if it wouldn't be asking too much.
Not at all. You rest easy for a few minutes, Doctor?
Watson, from the perspiration on your brow, your bloodshot eyes, and your greenish pallor, it appears that you are suffering a morning after the night before.
In a manner of speaking, Holmes.
Oh, this is too delicious. After all the temperance lectures I've endured from you for my harmless little experiments with the 7% cocaine solution.
They were not harmless in the least, Holmes, and I refuse to discuss it any further till I've had my coffee.
Oh, very well. I shall desist for the time being.
What have you there?
A harpoon, Watson. I just returned from Allardyce's butcher shop where I purchased a whole pig that he had hanging in his cold locker.
Whatever for?
An experiment, my dear fellow. Now, maybe not the most scientific, but I wanted to see how much force one would need to exert in order to impale a corpus so deeply that the point emerged from the other side.
And your conclusion?
Can't be done. At least not on one stroke. I tried it from every conceivable angle without success.
And well, what happened to the pig?
Oh, quite mutilated, I'm afraid, fit only for sausages. However, Mr. Allardyce was able to salvage a handsome pork loin for Mrs. Hudson. Ah, there she is now.
Oh, thank heavens.
I'll have your breakfast presently, Mr. Holmes. I thought the doctor's coffee was of the more urgent.
Indeed. I brought you this pork loin, Mrs. Hudson.
Dear me, what is happening? Dr. Watson suffering a hangover, and Mr. Holmes gone grocery shopping. I think the apocalypse must be upon us.
Well, in that case, let us savor this joint, perhaps roasted with pineapple, before civilization utterly disappears.
Have a care, Mr. Holmes! It's dripping on the rug.
Watson, you know, I could mix up for you a remedy that I learned from a witch doctor in Borneo.
Let me guess. Is it made with lizards' tongues?
Why, yes, indeed. How did you know? It will only take a moment once I boil the blood of a whiskered bat.
Thank you, Holmes, but no thank you. I'm fine.
Inspector Hopkins to see you.
Oh, Hopkins, good morning. Good morning, Hopkins. Good to see you. Mrs. Hudson, you may cancel the breakfast. We may not be staying.
Yes, Mr. Holmes. And I hope you feel better, Dr. Watson. And you've learned your lesson.
Indeed I have, Mrs. Hudson. Thank you.
That's good. Now, where am I going to find a pineapple at this time of year?
Good morning, Mr. Holmes. Doctor, I wonder if I might consult with you on a case.
The harpoon murder?
Exactly, Mr. Holmes. The coroner's inquest is first of next week, and there are one or two questions that will no doubt need to be answered.
I'd be delighted, but I understand that a newspaper reporter has visited the scene. Did you observe him? And has the place been secure?
Indeed we have, Mr. Holmes. I was with the reporter every minute, and he touched nothing. The body's been removed to the morgue, and the blood's been scrubbed from the floor, but everything else is still in place. But there is one piece of evidence I did take with me. This notebook. It seemed worth examining in depth, but I didn't know for sure what it was about.
The initials JHN and the date 1883.
Any idea what those initials might stand for?
None whatever. Hello. There's a stain of blood on the back cover. Where did you find this book?
On the floor.
How close to the body?
2 feet 4 inches. I measured it.
Oh, very good. Now tell me, which side was touching the floor?
The front was facing up. Oh, I see what you're getting at. The book fell onto the puddle of blood instead of blood falling onto the book.
Exactly.
So the book fell down after the murder occurred, perhaps even some time afterwards, because it would have taken quite some time for the blood to flow 2 feet from the body.
Oh, Watson, good to have you back among the living.
Don't worry about me, old boy.
So what do you make of all the markings in the book, Mr. Holmes?
Well, there are sections marked Argentine, Costa Rica, Sao Paulo. Appears to be lists of stock exchange securities.
I thought that the initials JHN on the cover and the CPR on the second page was, maybe the JHN was a stock brokerage and the CPR perhaps the client?
Try Canadian Pacific Railway.
Of course. Stupid of me. Well, then the JHN are the only initials we have to solve. Ooh. You'll admit, Mr. Holmes, that there is the possibility these could be the initials of the second person present, the murderer. Add to that the list of masses of valuable securities, and we may have a motive for the crime.
I must admit both your points. This notebook, which was not mentioned in the newspaper report, has modified any view of the case I may have previously formed. Have you endeavored to trace any of these securities?
Inquiries are now being made, but with so many of them from South America, it may be weeks before we can trace the shares.
And I take it no financial instruments were found among the dead man's effects?
None, sir.
Well, this is certainly a most interesting case. I suppose I shall have to come and have a look.
Oh, righto, and thank you, sir. That will be a great weight off my mind.
It would have been an easier task 3 days ago when the body was first discovered. Watson, if you could spare the time, I should be very glad of your company.
Oh, certainly, old boy.
Hopkins, would you be so good as to call us a four-wheeler? We shall be ready to leave in a quarter of an hour.
Certainly, sir.
Holmes, about that harpoon, it came up in a conversation last night, and, well, I think I'd better tell you about it.
Oh, am I to understand that you remember last night?
Quite well, thank you.
Tell me about it in the carriage, old man. There's not a moment to be lost.